With the ending of Arc 9 of ReZero is undoubtedly going to go down as one of, if not the most controversial decisions with the entire series of ReZero up until this point, and who knows, maybe throughout the end of the entire series. With that being said, there has been numerous opinions and takes that have spawned out of this, and a lot that are rooted within a dislike of Arc 9 and claiming that the ending was bad and not good. As half the fandom of ReZero is quite honestly split on ReZero Arc 9, with some thinking it's amazing and others thinking this is the worst decision within ReZero up until this point, and how could people keep defending Tappei going forth? You may be asking, where do I stand on this topic? If it's not evident by the title itself, I think Arc 9 personally was amazing, and that's the point of today's video. I want to go over common critiques about Arc 9 and go over more specifically common, good things I think about Arc 9 and why I think people are looking at this arc through the wrong lens, and for people to maybe look back at it and give it a second chance. And maybe if you're an Arc 9 hater, I can convince you to, not love it, because at the end of the day, you can't convince people to enjoy something if they straight up don't enjoy it, but look at it from a bit of a different lens and, hear Tappei out and see where he goes with this. But anyways, if you enjoy this type of ReZero content and enjoy anime or ReZero or media in general, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And with that being said, I'm going to just go ahead and get right into the video. For those of you who are unaware or are, anime onlys who, want to be spoiled, essentially what happened within Arc 9 is at the beginning of Arc 9, Al seals Subaru after Priscilla dies because Al is upset, and with Priscilla dying, this triggers Al to return back to his original goal within the ReZero world, and that is to, from what we know, stop secondary damage, whatever that means, which is presumably Subaru. Al was created, or I shouldn't say created, but brought about over 400 years ago up until this point during the era of the witches, and essentially worked with Echidna, in which she tried to hone his skills so he could be the one who defeats, the Witch of Envy, in which Al fails, and in doing so, Echidna goes ahead and sends him into the future and sacrifices herself. So in which we follow Aldebaran as he has 7 days to go ahead and seal Natsuki Subaru and get him rid of the world, in which he has the goal of getting to Kararagi and putting him in the geyser. As Al proclaims, in which we still don't know the full implications of this, that the geyser will rid Subaru of the world, and many theorize that it is a tunnel to another world, presumably Earth. With all of that being said, there were some implications from the very start that a great reset was going to take place within Arc 9 of ReZero. And I think the most evident of all of that is going to be Rem getting her memories back at this early point within the story, and for Subaru to not be there. Now, when I originally saw that, I wasn't 100% convinced on a great reset. More so, I thought Subaru was going to be left with a decision, that may involve a great reset, in which he thought he was going to have to, save Petra or save, Rem, as Petra became the Witch of Melancholy. Another implication that this arc really wasn't going to stay the way it was going, and that it wouldn't be able to progress into the future. I thought Subaru was going to be left with a penultimate of either save Rem or save Petra, and, whichever that's going to be, and it was going to correlate with what Priscilla told him at the end of Arc 8, and, Subaru's decision to not save Priscilla and rewrite fate. But with the ending of Arc 9, we now know that Subaru didn't even essentially really have a chance, and Rem and Petra killed him off rip the second he woke up. To which I'll go ahead and address the point of Rem and Petra later, but I want to address, the main point and something that isn't necessarily due to the story, but a reason I think, this ending is getting so much hate to begin with, that is tied more to, human psyche than it is the actual story. Hear me out on this, but I think the reason that a lot of people are hating on the Great Reset is because people predicted it was going to happen. People knew, including me, I shouldn't say I know, but people were aware of a theory called the Great Reset way before it even happened, way earlier in the arc. I have videos of me literally talking about it, months ago, before this arc even got close to the point it's at now. More importantly, I think Rem actually getting her memories back points to the Great Reset theory that's revolving around Arc 9 more and more. If you don't know, the Great Reset theory is that Subaru at the end of this arc is going to reset back and all the events of Arc 9 are going to be retconned. And I just feel like everything that's happening within this arc is pointing to that more and more. And I think this idea of a Great Reset in theory to a lot of people can sound bad. Think about that. You're resetting and retconning a whole series of events that are, playing out within a story. And I think before Tappei got to execute on this idea and this theory and really show his writing, people already had a preconformed feeling on how a great reset would look and, how that theory would play out. And, before even giving Tappei a chance, decided that it was going to be bad. And so for them to actually see, that a great reset actually did happen, it added a lot of shock value for a lot of people. And there was a good amount of fans within the ReZero community that, immediately dismissed this idea and said it was going to be bad before Tappei even had the chance to implicate it. And I really, really do full-heartedly think that this theory being around and it being a fan theory, and most of the time ReZero fans just completely dismissing fan theories, before they even get stated, saying, "Oh, this is so stupid. Oh, wouldn't let this guy write the story." I really do think that played a role in the amount of hate that this ending got. People were, expecting Tappei to do something like crazy and mind riveting, and I don't think that's a fair expectation to held. If people predicted and theorized that a great reset would happen, and a great reset did happen, because that's, like, looking back on it now, hindsight's 2020, but looking back on it was extremely obvious what was going to happen looking at Arc 9. I don't think that's fair at all to hold that against Tappei and say that's a bad writing choice. But on a subconscious psyche level, I really do think that, feeling of it being a theory and hearing about it for a while and seeing and hearing people's different takes on, how that would play out really did leave a lot of people with a bad taste in their mouth before Tappei even had the chance to implement this idea within his story. Because, I mean, how often do we see, theories like this really get shown out within ReZero? To be fair, most theories you see within the ReZero community are complete crack theories that make no sense at all. So to actually see this theory get put out into the story, especially such a big theory like this, predicting the entire ending of an arc, it left a lot of people with a weird feeling. With that being said, the next point I want to make, and something I really want to hone in on, is people are looking at the story too narrow. And what I mean by this is people are looking at this from the implications of arc to arc to arc, grading ReZero from arc to arc to arc instead of a cumulative story. And I think when you look at Arc 9, from an arc to arc basis, you say, oh, what was the point of this entire arc? Oh, this was just, a whole loop that got retconned. That's obviously going to leave a bad taste in your mouth. And I can't blame people for looking at it from that lens, because ReZero is an arc-based story, and people are going to identify the arcs as their own separate things. But I think on a grander scale, and what we really need to be looking at it as, is a story basis. And what is this on a story basis going from arc 1 to arc 12? This is a 40 chapter span out of like 700 or 800 that get retconned. And when you look at it from, that implications, this really isn't that big of a deal, at least in my opinion, especially when all of, if not every single lore implication that is told within this chapter span is still held. And Subaru was witnessing this stuff, albeit, blurry. He got to witness and understand what was said and what was heard through his ability Corleones. Now take a step back and look at Arc 9 of ReZero, not as Arc 9, but as just, a chapter span within the overall hundreds upon hundreds of chapters of ReZero. All this really is a bigger loop. And considering the fact that a lot of people within the ReZero community felt as if through Arc 7 and Arc 8, Return by Death had really lost, its impact on the overall story. Because back in the day, at least I feel like within the earlier arcs of ReZero, Subaru returning by death wasn't always a good thing. This was a scary thing. There would be times where you would literally fear and be like, oh my God, progress is going to get lost. Progress is going to get lost. Oh, so many things are happening. And, all these connections Subaru's made with people, it's going to get retconned. And it sucked. And it left you with a feeling of dread. And you hated to see it. All that really is now Tappei has brought back, the implications of Return by Death, showing both sides of the ability and truly how dreadful this could be. And it's almost within a sense twisting it on the viewer, where instead of Subaru losing a time period with people, it is now the viewer losing a time period with people. And I totally see where Tappei was going with that. And me personally, I really like how he executed that and was able to unfold his ideas and really, portray this across to the viewer. And as for Tappei's thoughts and feelings himself, Tappei has gone on to state with the Arc 9 ending that his goal with Arc 9 was to illustrate the light and the dark side of Return by Death. And what do I think he means by this? I think Tappei means the fact that Return by Death is a curse and a blessing. And with Arc 9, he was able to, at least leave up to the viewers, that's how he makes it sound within his author note, for you to decide, is what happened a curse, in the sense that, everything we got to see, all the development that we got to see from characters, such as Ram, or, her getting her memories back, and so on and so forth, or Petra, or these character moments for Roswell. Is it a curse that was all taken away from us? Or is it a blessing and, the light of Return by Death, that all of this other bad stuff happened, in which we see Petra, sacrifice everything and, freaking literally half of, Avelia camp and Felt's camp be left like brain dead by Al's ability. And the fact Subaru can return by death and reset all of this, showing the light side of return by death and the good that can come out of this. And it's up for you as the viewer to ultimately decide, the bearing of that weight and, what Arc 9 has to say, and whether that be, that return by death is a good thing or return by death is a bad thing, and more so that it can be both simultaneously. And if that was Tappei's goal with this arc, I think it's silly to, pretend that it was badly executed. And that goes to another point I want to make, that if you enjoyed reading it, if you enjoyed everything that happened, and, the ending have you a little upset, I feel like it's unfair to take away those emotions that you felt within the entire arc. And something I felt this arc really did well and really showed Subaru and helped his character grow, even though his character wasn't there, although he was watching, is show how much the Amelia camp and the Felt camp and the world cares about Natsuki Subaru. They put everything on the forefront to protect Natsuki Subaru, and I think it really goes to hone in on that development Subaru has had in later arcs, being 7, 8, and 9, that he inspires people. Subaru is so much more dangerous than just the sole fact that he has returned by death. Natsuki Subaru is dangerous because he is a contagious man. And what I mean by this is Natsuki Subaru is somebody who inspires people. His personality rubs off on people. He makes people want to be good. He makes people want to save everybody, and he makes people want to change. And I feel like Tappei's implications of this theme and this idea that loving everybody is so important. And when you love everybody and show kindness to everybody, despite when people may wrong you and despite when people may be, bad to you, such as we've seen with, so many characters towards Subaru throughout the entire series, he's really reiterated this so well within these arcs, whether it be with, the Pleiades battalion within Arc 8 and Subaru inspiring everybody and sharing his Corleones with everybody around him, or in Arc 9, where we get literally the entire world try to save Natsuki Subaru. It just henceforth goes to show how much our main character has really grown from those earlier arcs in which he would try to carry the burden alone. He would try to carry everybody's problems on his own, and it was unhealthy within a sense, such as an arc like Arc 4, where so much of Arc 4 is spent with Subaru realizing that it is okay to rely on his friends because his friends rely on him, and that is the natural, tendencies of a healthy relationships. And for him to not do such a thing would be inherently greedy. It reiterates that point and shows our character's execution of growth extremely well, being that now he's okay with sharing this pain with everybody around him while also taking their pain because he knows that these characters and these people are going to fight for him. On top of this, I feel as if this arc was able to establish extremely good hypotheticals and things that, typically you couldn't have ever been able to see within the main story of ReZero, and see how that's going to play out, such as people learning about return by death and why that could be dangerous, and more specifically play into reasoning about why Satella could hide such a thing. I mean, think about it. The second Rem and Petra learned about return by death, with good intentions, of course, a plan was devised so that they could literally off Subaru at the end of this great reset. This was all planned from the very start, in which many people had mixed feelings on that. I personally don't mind it, and I think it makes sense, and it plays a bit into the unhealthy, obsession Rem has for Subaru within a sense, and same could almost be said with Petra throughout this arc. And once again, just goes to reiterate that point of a light and a dark side of return by death. I don't think Tappei is trying to proclaim anything specifically. I think he is more so leaving it up to the reader's interpretation of, what does that, implement? What does that show? That the second somebody learned about return by death and what it does, they devised a plan for Subaru to go back and with, the good intentions of saving everybody, still have more or less a disregard for his life as a whole. And what did that say about Subaru's development and where he's come? And to be fair, this plan was heavily implemented by a Petra who clearly wasn't within the right state of mind, being that she had an Arc 4 version of Subaru who had yet to learn the value of his own life in her head at all times, which obviously impacted, the decisions that were going to be made and how they were going to be made. And on top of this, I feel like it's a say and a testament towards Rem's honestly unhealthy obsession with Subaru. To just go after another note, I know people are mad that Tappei retconned Rem's, gaining her memories back. I'm personally not. I don't think that was a big deal at all, and I think it makes sense. And I think it was obvious from the very start that, guys, Rem was not going to just get her memories back. Let's be so for real. You can't read this story up until this point and just assume that, in that moment, like right there, Rem was going to get her memories back and nothing was going to happen. Like, this is ReZero. This is Tappei Nagatsu. There's always a twist. There's always something, to be like, wait, hold on, that goes with it. It never just comes about that easily. Honestly, just from a writing standpoint, I don't know how many people out here actually read the chapters. I don't know how many Arc 9 viewers are, just watching summary videos, But if you just read these chapters, the writing Tappei is able to put into this and execute. I mean, the very last chapter, God, where, Subaru goes back and is literally crying as he has to seal Ao, unfortunately so, is so like heartwarming and damaging. And it's just like, I don't know how people can read that and be like, this isn't good. Oh, this sucks. It's like, did you read it? Like, it was really good. It was a very heartfelt moment. And who knows with the lore implications. Speaking of lore implications, and this will be my last major point, grouping this together with another idea being that I think it is silly and stupid to be 9 arcs into ReZero up until this point and not trust the writing decisions of Tappei Nagatsuki. Time and time again, Tappei has made questionable decisions in the sense of plot devices. And there's no greater example of this than in Arc 6 of the series, in which Tappei used one of, if not the most controversial plot device in all of media, that being the amnesia trope on our own main character. And when this originally happened, for at least from what I've seen, not to this degree, but many people were extremely upset. Many people thought this was a bad idea, using an amnesia trope on our main character. Oh, that's so silly. People were like, oh, this is going to reiterate the same points that have already happened, which I also see is a common complaint with Arc 9. People being like, oh, Tappei's not going to be able to reintroduce so many of these character points and these character moments we see within Arc 9, again, within later arcs, and make it feel natural. In which I think that's silly. Tappei has time and time again shown that he is able to freshly and organically reiterate character points and reiterate character moments. And Arc 6 is the best example of that. I mean, we literally go over the same complex we have been going over with Subaru again within Arc 6, being his identity crisis and his identity issues. And we get, essentially a parallel to the beginning arcs of ReZero of when Subaru got put into the world and, tried to be somebody he wasn't, but instead of being compared to his father this time, he's constantly compared to a Natsuki Subaru, somebody at a greater lens. I think it is silly to dismiss Tappei's ability to reintroduce these character points and, reintroduce controversial themes within a story, such as, identity loss and amnesia, or, such as within Arc 9, a Great Reset. So much of Tappei's writing, I think, is taking these tropes that are seen as typically bad and making them good and, trying to find the good within them, whether that be with the isekai genre as a whole, with ReZero, and taking the worst parts of isekais and turning that into an amazing character study on a Hakikimori and somebody who, quite honestly, struggles with self-love and identity, or with amnesia within Arc 6, or amnesia within all of ReZero, or, the latest example, using a reset within Arc 9. Tappei has time and time again shown as a writer that this is a point he uses, so to just dismiss it, in my opinion, is silly. And guys, I would just like to say one last time that it's too early to judge. It's too early to say that Arc 9 is going to be left as it is and have no lore implications or series implications or, anything going forward. I think people kind of bit the gun on, saying Arc 9 was bad before actually sitting back and waiting and doing some critical thinking, being that since when has ReZero as a story, the story that you probably love if you're reading Arc 9 and is one of your favorite series, why would you doubt that all of a sudden they're just going to completely not mention an arc, have any implications on our main character, Subaru, or even Ao, for example? That is silly, in my opinion. Obviously, in my opinion, Arc 9 is going to play a role within Arc 10, 11, and 12. This isn't going to just, be completely unmentioned. And you obviously can't say now, oh, how is that going to happen? How is that going to be done? We don't know. I mean, that's the point of, it not being known yet. Tappei's a creative writer. We're just going to have to wait and see. I mean, guys, we literally had one of the biggest lore implications within the entire series within Arc 9 of ReZero. I mean, multiple, being that Subaru's worthy of Reinhardt's sword. That's not going to just be dismissed. There's obviously a reason behind that we're going to get to learn. We're obviously going to get to learn about the geyser within Kararagi and, see where that leads to and see what that's even about. That's not going to just be dismissed. That would be insane. And to assume Tappei is going to do such is, what's the word? Petty. It's a bit unfaithful within the writer, which if you like ReZero and you enjoy ReZero, in my opinion, you have no reason to do that. And most importantly, we are not done with Ao. I don't think we're directly going to go back to this Ao conflict within Arc 10. I think it's going to take some time, if I'm being quite honest, but Ao is going to be reintroduced, guys. We are going to get more lore on Natsuki Rigel and what that's about, and if he's Subaru's brother, son, father, so on or so forth. This is going to be implemented back into the story. Very obviously, all of the lore implications and things talked about within Arc 9 of ReZero are going to be brought back. It's like, assuming that all of this stuff isn't going to be talked about again, is like assuming that a failed loop within Arc 4 where Roswell tells Subaru that, oh, he knows he has returned by death, essentially, and, they die, isn't going to have any implications going forth. The implications are still going to be there. Failed loops have always had implications and have always held impact within ReZero, whether it be just through the lens of Subaru or through everybody else. All this is a failed loop on a slightly bigger chapter scale. I think the word great reset carries a lot of connotations that it probably shouldn't. As I said at the start of the video, preconformed opinions are going to play a role in how people feel about this, but I really do think this was a great writing decision from Tappei, and I had to take a while to really come to terms with this. I sat around for about a week because of finals and stuff, and sat with my thoughts, but with every passing day, I just feel more and more inclined that I like this ending, and I think Tappei knows what he's doing, and I think Arc 9 of ReZero is one of the best arcs within all of ReZero. And yeah, all I can ask from you is to wait for future arcs to come out to really just dismiss this arc. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, you have to enjoy it, because enjoyment is subjective, and that's going to be, your own opinion and so on and so forth. But I'm asking you to recognize that, Tappei may have had a goal, and it's very real possibility that people misinterpret his goal. I could be even misinterpreting his goal, and being quite honest with you, and he can go a completely different direction with all this. But I just ask you to be patient as a reader and as a fan of ReZero, to be patient to, make an opinion and judge Arc 9 as one of the worst arcs within the series. With all that being said, I do have a few complaints about Arc 9 that, didn't sit with me, right? One of those is going to be, the one thing that really does bother me with the Great Reset is I really did like what happened between Heinkel and Wilhelm, and I hate that that's going to get reset, but that's just what comes with a Great Reset. It also sucks that Ye Tenzin is probably not going to have a major story role, hence going forth, and is going to be sidecasted within a sense after seeing a lot of great development from her. I'm not saying that Arc 9 is abstinent of any sort of complaint or, disapproval, especially with something as big as retconning 40 chapters of a series within a sense. I just think that Tappei had bigger goals and bigger implications for the series of ReZero, and if we have to lose, a character like Ye Tenzin to have way greater character moments between someone like Subaru, then I'm completely fine with that, and I think that's okay. And if that's for the sake of Subaru's development and for the progression of the main story, and to give us these hypotheticals, I'm completely fine with that. One more thing I'd like to say is that Tappei himself said within his author comments that this arc was not supposed to go on for as long as it did. Or he didn't say that, but he said essentially along those lines that when he's writing and he gets in the middle of writing, new ideas pop up in his head and new things he wants to explore come up. And so he explores those ideas. And doing fourth obviously is going to extend the arc, in which he said that he ultimately does not regret and feels it made it better. But I feel like what he was getting at with this is that he could understand why people may have mixed feelings, because he went a little overboard and made this loop a little longer than he feels like he probably should have. But like he said, this is going to have greater implications on the story and was worth it to explore such dynamics, as you often in many series don't get the opportunity of exploring dynamics between characters, because of certain circumstances for the overall implications of the story. And having an ability like Return by Death presents that opportunities where you can explore these dynamics and then go back and, to a point where they weren't explored and continue the main story. And I think within a lot of sense, that's what happened within Arc 9 of ReZero. But yeah, that's about it for the video today. I personally love Arc 9 of ReZero. Many people were asking my thoughts on it. I got swamped with finals. It was very hard to make this video, but finals are over and I could finally talk about it, and I loved it personally. I mean, at first I was having mixed feelings, but the more time that passes, the more I realize that I really do enjoy it, and I really do enjoy this series, and I love it as a whole. For the month of December, I'm hoping to be much more consistent with my content, so expect a lot more videos hence coming forth, talking about the anime, talking about theories regarding earlier loops, so on and so forth. But yeah, with all that being said, thank you guys for watching. Let me know your thoughts on Arc 9 below. Don't hate me, if I have a different opinion than you, at the end of the day, this is media and a random series, so don't take it too seriously. If you disagree with me, it's fine. Anyways, guys, peace.